Hello, we are live with SEO Meetup Melbourne. Hello and welcome. I am Nik Ranger. I'm going to be your host for this evening, and as a funny turn of events, also the presenter today, because why the hell not? I was given the platform and the stage, and therefore I took it and hijacked it. So, haha. I'm really blessed to have two of my good personal friends with me here today, who are not just phenomenal people and humans. People and humans, there we go, where I really needed to define that, but they're also incredible marketing experts. Can I please welcome to the stage James Poladaris and Peter Michinkovich? Woo! Thank you so much, guys, for being here.
Hey, what a wonderful applause. Thanks, everyone, for coming.
Yeah, I know. I was actually thinking, I really need to have some kind of little soundboard so I can have something going live, because it's not radio jockey shock enough with this whole setup. But here we are. James, to all the people who and shout out to Mr. Peter Mead, godfather of Australian SEO, who's here. Came for the memes and the migration advice. Awesome. Well, memes we have aplenty, but I'd really like to, introduce my illustrious guests to everybody. James, you are an absolute titan when it comes to Google Analytics and Google ads. Can you please, introduce yourselves and later to the audience?
Sure.
This is the top result.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Hey, thank you, Google.
My Google Home is like, this is the top result for James Poladaris. We have speakable items.
So, my name is James. I run an agency called The Compilator. It is a paid media specialist agency. So we only do three things, and just three things. So we do programmatic media, paid search, so Google, Bing, and paid social media, plus a whole heap of analytics audits and work, fixing analytics profiles because they're usually broken. So that's essentially who we are on a paid media extent. And then we also have another agency, which is a video production agency, which is working on some pretty big stuff I can't talk about, but essentially we are growing. So hopefully after the US mid next year, everything works out well with everything overseas. So that's it. In a nutshell, that's who we are.
Woohoo! Awesome. So in a nutshell, watch this space, because there's going to be some really exciting things happening in your area of the world. Awesome.
Yeah.
And of course, my good friend Peter Michinkovich, who usually graces the comments and has the best questions and the most interesting takes on pretty much everything. I lean on him for so much, and I'm really blessed to have him here today. Peter, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience? Who are you? What do you like to do? And what's your maybe even your favorite part of SEO?
Well, it's obviously technical SEO, because that's what my job title is. I'm Peter Michinkovich. I'm the technical SEO strategist at an agency called Innovate Online. If you haven't heard of us, maybe you heard of some of our clients. We have JB Hi-Fi, Metricon, Hair House, Coats Hire, T2, a whole bunch of other ones. So it's based in Caulfield. I've been there for about a year and 4 months, whatever August last year was. Before that, I was actually a digital marketing manager at a small e-commerce beauty retailer, which I was there for about 4.5 years. And yeah, my favorite part about SEO is just doing the technical stuff. And basically my job is to make it as easy as possible for the robot to understand what it's actually looking at. So that's basically my favorite part. And I love tinkering away at websites. It's just my favorite. So, yeah.
Oh man, don't we all? That's pretty much why we're here. And just want to have a bit of a shout out to Make SEO Simple Again, which I'm pretty sure is Daniel Chung. I hope that I've got that right. But yeah, absolutely. We like to be on the tools. We like to figure out what's going on, and technical SEO is, I think, something that you and I, and I'm sure you too, James, we all share an innate fascination and passion with. So things that gets us, up every day, just to kind of like see what's going on with Google search and what we can do. And of course, we are here to talk about site migrations. Now, usually I have my very good friends, Saijo George, who is on TDLR marketing. Usually he's the co-host with me, but he's just stuck in traffic and he doesn't think that he's going to be able to make today. So he sends his apologies, but TDLR marketing, it's a really fantastic newsletter, not sponsored, obviously. It's just because that's the newsletter that I get in my inbox. And it really is quite fantastic. It gives you really great kind of snippet headlines from what's happening all around Google search and with Google ads and with social media as well. So it's a really great way to stay on top of things. And also a really nice little shout out to Chris. G'day, g'day, g'day. We love some Melbourneites and we're getting out of lockdown soon. So, hey, the weather's warming up. Everyone's a little bit happier and yeah, absolutely. Mr. Chris Burgess. Woohoo! Howdy all.
Yeah.
All right. So usually in this part of the introduction, we kind of go through news and reflect on the month that's been. If I'll be honest, I think hosting and making a presentation, I am absolutely not prepared for this part of the thing. And usually that's what I lean on with Saijo to be able to help me out. But I'll put it over to you guys. A little bit of an on-the-spot question, but in the last month, what have you sort of seen? I think with Google Analytics 4, James, that sort of really, it's come out. It's taken a lot of people's imagination by storms. It's really interesting. We've got 2 properties, and of course, the Twitterverse and SEO communities are alight with conversation as to what to do about that. So, what's your take on Google Analytics 4, James?
I don't mind it. The interface going from the old analytics to the GA4 is a lot easier for people to use. It's not, things aren't hidden. It's easy to find things. It's all organized really nicely. Whether or not the more advanced features that you have in analytics now are going to work just as well, we'll have to wait and see while they still unroll a lot of that sort of stuff. But largely, especially with events tracking is a lot easier with the new analytics. But we'll have to wait and see from an admin perspective and all the more advanced features that you can do in analytics now, whether they're going to still be just as good in the new GA. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Have you had a chance to get into it, Peter? I think you and your company had a bit of like a real great deep dive tutorial.
We had like training and we're going over it because we want to implement it on some of our clients, obviously. But because, whenever you're switching over, we're kind of in the process of like, okay, we'll have the current analytics and GA4 running at the same time when we eventually switch some of our clients over, which is the recommendation. The other stuff that we're trying to get into as well is server-side tagging. So server-side tagging has actually been around for a while, but basically we're in the middle of like a cookie apocalypse, or it's like a cookie dying out. So like Safari, the cookies only last for a day, and some other browsers only for like 7 days. So our attribution windows are getting smaller and smaller as we're going forward, and so it's only going to get different when HTTP 3 like gets fully rolled out, etc. So server-side tagging is essentially you run like a Google Cloud platform. It's only available on Google Cloud, but you basically run that on a subdomain. And that will store kind of your Google Analytics data, and you can actually have better cookies or attribution, and we're kind of trialing that soon. So it's a lot of information to digest very quickly, which is, I'm digest a lot of information anyway, but it's a lot because it's very new. So the way I work on things is that I want to implement and see what I can learn from the actual experience. So we just got to play it safe and that kind of stuff. Like I don't want to do something too ambitious with like clients that already have a very sophisticated setup, for example, especially when it comes to stuff like CRMs and all this kind of stuff that has to talk to each other. So yeah, we're having a go at it, but like we're kind of doing it with like, a single client at a time. If we have to get specialists to help us out, that kind of stuff, like they train us up, understand the platform. But it's really, really exciting with some of the potential you can do. But it's kind of like SEO. It's like there's so many things you can do, but like there's like platform limitations, or like some setups are different than others. Like there's some things you can and can't easily do with some analytics setups. And I've seen some good and really, really bad analytics setups. So yeah.
Oh man, absolutely. And yeah, that's really important to really be able to like have a good sense of being able to know that your data that you're looking at is one that's reliable, that it's clean, and that you're not having any of the different channels bleed into one another. And I know, James, you and I, over the course of this past month, we've really gone through it. Yeah, absolutely. So I think without further ado, we might just get into it, if that's all right. And I think, yeah, I mean, would like to usually touch on with the news, but again, like I said, that is very much Saijo George's realm. So I'm going to now share my...
I was just going to say, the only news item I think of note for the past month is like that we can't really force index anymore with Google, which they've taken away our powers. So it's really, really tricky time because it's November and it's a lot of launches and stuff. I would really, really like to have that tool available to us. So yeah,
it's so funny that you said that, because last night, because I was on Twitter, because of course I was on Twitter, John Muir tweeted out and was saying that they were reconsidering their issues were with that being taken away. So maybe that might be a really good one just to follow up, make your voices heard to John, and I think by extension to the greater Google Webmaster team, because that's really his department that he helps. So I will start to share my screen and let's get into it. I think this is the quickest I've ever really done from that, but that's just because I'm the one that leads the conversation. Alrighty, awesome. Now this is going to be heavily Simpsons memed, everybody, so brace yourselves. All right. Just going to check. Can everyone see my slides?
Yep.
I see a giant Studio Hawk logo, so yes.
Beautiful. Excellent. Awesome. I don't know if you can still see me, but I'm making wild gestures of happiness. Okay, so who am I? I work for Studio Hawk, which is the largest SEO agency here, and I am a technical SEO specialist. That is really, like Peter, that is really the thing that gets me up in the morning, and I really, really love that. It's a thing that I think, above all else, intrigues me and keeps me motivated to keep pushing the envelope. Of course, I'm very, very lucky to be the co-host of this SEO Meetup, but I'm also the co-host of SEMrush's Australian Search Marketing Academy, ASMA, with Peter Mead, the godfather of SEO. I also was a founder of Women in Tech SEO, which is an initiative to really help women find a platform in SEO and to get encouragement and resources and a little bit of some informal mentorship to better, be better SEOs and be and to be a lot more front facing. So if you know anybody, please send them my way. I'm also an electric violinist and an artist and a poppy owner, which that might be a little bit weird to some of you as to what that might mean, but this is Poppy. She is my whole world. She is the most beautiful doggo, and yes, she is, of course, my favorite of all the doggos, obviously. So, site migrations. I think when I'm thinking of site migrations, this is kind of my experience of them. They are usually fraught with issues. It is usually with, I think, with a lot of different teams, they don't understand why having a good SEO agency as your partner through this process is so important. And so a lot of things, a lot of conversations aren't had. There are a lot of things that, from a development perspective, that look really shiny and cool and awesome, but they may not render, or they may completely exclude whole sections of the website from search, or in-house teams. They might think like, oh, we don't need to have all these pages being transitioned over because of, for whatever reason. And that might have a massive detrimental impact on their organic traffic, the keywords, and of course, their overall authority of their site. So let's get into it. That's all the stuff that could kind of go wrong. It's just a little bit of a prelude to what's going to happen. But here we go. So this is a bit of a bit of an agenda, if you will. What is a site migration? Why do they fail? Getting started with the planning, pre-migration preparation, pre-migration testing, actually launching that. Awesome. We've launched it. Awesome. But the job isn't done there because we need to go through a post-migration review and a follow-up and make sure that we're monitoring all of the different things that we've gone through with the pre-migration testing. And then we can then evaluate whether or not this was successful. It is a long journey that requires a lot of communication and a lot of feedback and a lot of trust as well in all teams. So it's one that isn't taken lightly. So let's get into it. Like, what is a site migration? Like, what do they look like? I've kind of made this a little bit simple here. So, we've got here changing URLs. We can see very clearly, with the URLs here. This is pretty common, like especially with products, they'll just kind of like have the product code in there, and for users, it doesn't mean anything. So with this type of site migration, they might want to consider to change the URLs to maybe shorten them for better readability, or to fix incorrect URLs or future-proof URLs by removing the year from the URL slot. I've seen them a lot, Black Friday 2020. Oh no, you're always going to have that URL for 2020, and evergreen content, it might look a little bit weird. Also, something that I have really noticed from my years of being an SEO, sometimes you've got a really, really great IA structure. It's fantastic for tracking, and it's also fantastic for being able to rank a lot better for URLs that have a keyword in it. That's not to say I put keywords in all of your URLs. It's just something that I've seen. So don't go crazy. Merging content. You've got multiple pages about the same topic that are cannibalizing each other. So, why not merge them together? I've put it in a little example here. We see them a lot of time in the e-commerce space where the brand category URLs will also include products. And that product will be exactly the same if you've also got it for the category, and maybe you've distinguished this by brand and then having the product there as well. Or it might be just category / product. But essentially, they're the same page that has the same content, but two different URLs that is essentially like duplicates of each other. So essentially, they're cannibalizing their opportunity. This is where you can maybe look at consolidating that and merging the content. So maybe you might want to split it out where you'll have, just your brand page. You'll want to split out and you just have your category, subcategory, and maybe you'll have everything canonicalized to the product, much like a Shopify kind of structure. But that might be a really consolidating way with changing from different CMS. This happens a lot in this process. And it just requires a lot of communication to really see what's going on here. But, that's what merging content migration looks like. Website redesign launch. Now, I've kind of put there in different fonts there to kind of denote this, but it's really a redesign launch is when you're changing the whole look and the feel of your website. Often you'll use that opportunity to be able to add, change, or remove content too, which is a little bit weird and finicky, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But generally, this is a great opportunity to be able to add really cool things like faceted navigation, or a better menu structure, or just like nicer, cleaner, leaner code. So this is what is involved with a website redesign launch. And changing your changing your website architecture and your URL structure. So I've got a little example there with a very flat structure and a silo structure. So you might have a structure of your site where you'll have a homepage / everything, every single page, every single blog, every single category, every single product is just basically all coming off the homepage. That's what we call a flat structure. Ideally, we have a little bit of a mix between that and maybe a siloed structure. But this is where we're looking at wanting to change this fundamentally to be able to like have a little bit more structure as to what that will look like. So that is that type of migration. There are quite a few of different migrations. So the other kinds of ones is like, when you're upgrading your SSL certificate, and maybe I should have started with this because this is probably one of the most common ones, where you've finally got your SSL certificate and you've gone from HTTP to HTTPS, and very much like that example there, you've just got like, just adding that little S there, but that's what it's there for. It's there for website security, and to really show to users and to search engines that if you put any of your payment information in there, that it's at least secure, and that it's at least going to not, be beneficial for users at the end of the day. So, that's really, really great. Switching domain names. If you are wanting to do a rebrand or rename, which I think are two different things in the business universe, but this is just where you're changing the name of your URLs. So maybe you might have example.com and you're wanting to make example as your company name more fancy to exemplar. That's what changing that structure looks like. Merging websites. This one's super, super, super common, particularly in the international SEO space, where you might have subdomains, say like, site A might be a subdomain for the US, site B might be a subdomain for the EU, and you're wanting to converge all of that onto one site with subdirectories to denote the different variations of that. So merging websites, that's what it can be. Sometimes they'll have one website that's a front-facing one that they thought that would be like that. And for whatever reason, they've decided to have another website for orders. And it's there for orders, but it's also got lots of really great content to help users. And so they kind of like have both of their marketing budgets split into two when they could just have it as the one coherent convergent site that does both of those things and really make sure that everything goes quite well. And the last two, and I wanted to start off with some more memes here. Switching to a new CMS. Sorry, Wix fans out there and people that are convinced that Wix SEO can work, but I just use that as an example because it's a low-hanging fruit there. But if you're switching from CMS from Wix to literally anything else that might be better, that's the type of migration there. And of course, that last one is switching hosting providers. So of course, quite possibly the popularity of your site has really, really increased. You're getting like 3 times, 4 times as much traffic as you used to, and your hosting provider really just can't quite keep up with the capacity of that. So this is where the little Ralph Wiggum site may need to have a better hosting provider or parent. Don't feed your kids poison. All right. So in this slide, this one kind of really goes through and explores why websites fail. Now, there is so many reasons that I thought let's just talk more conceptually about why websites fail, because we will be here until the end of time. I'm managing, I think at the moment, I've just brought another one on today, so I'm now back up to managing 10, unfortunately. And there can be a lot of pitfalls and a lot of things to check, and it can be very much a full-on job for every single one of those. But conceptually, not understanding the risks involved in the website migration process is key. With any in-house team, whenever they're making these decisions, it's not a bad thing that they do website migrations. It's entirely necessary in a lot of instances to be able to keep up with your competition and to be able to keep up with user expectations with their UX. Like maybe they do want to be able to get different payment gateways, or maybe they do want to have like PayPal or Afterpay or some kind of other payment plan like Latitude Pay, because that's what they expect from buying said widget out there, because it's an expensive widget. You know, these things are really, really necessary to be able to look at having a migration, but not understanding the risks, I think, is one of the biggest pitfalls. And not enough people, I think, ask those kinds of questions when getting into it. That also leads to poor planning. Poor planning where you're not told all the information. It's also hard for it's hard for everybody. One, to know what's relevant, and two, to know whether or not it's going to have impact if you don't understand the risks. And that just leads credence to poor planning. So again, it's really, really important to be as open and as honest. And for as an SEO leading any site migration, it's really important that you ask the questions that we'll outline here today to be able to get a really good idea as to what's happening. An incomplete migration checklist. So maybe you've gone through and you've asked a couple of questions and like weeks go by, months go by, and you realize like, oh, wait, there's a whole thing that we didn't realize that was there. And we didn't really think about asking that till afterwards. This is so common. And again, it's not always on the in-house teams. It could also be on the development team as well. When the in-house team says like, oh, we want the images to like flash in a certain way, or we want this to sort of like pop up or redirect if a user from a certain IP is looking at this from this particular region, or we want to have search elements that we want to be able to rank for as many keywords as we can. So yeah, why not like just make it indexable? Like development agencies will kind of take that and either do it exactly to the letter or to the one that they think will look and feel the most jazzy, for lack of a better word. And a lot of the time, that's done in JavaScript, and a lot of the time, then that opens up to JavaScript rendering and whether or not it's actually even going to be seen by search. So again, incomplete migration checklist or no checklist at all can be really quite dicey as to letting things go by the wayside and not knowing until much later that that thing that you didn't check was the thing that undid all of it. It can be that dire. Again, lack of knowledge by parties involved. I think, not understanding the risks and incomplete migrations checklists, a lack of knowledge is really quite important here. Again, this can be really super, super technical. This is really hard for, an everyday just to kind of like jump on and know exactly what's going on, particularly if it's new. It's a new type of migration, and there's things that maybe it might have like some APIs with some vendors that they just don't know how all of those products get loaded in. They have to ask these questions, and if they don't know to ask these questions, just think, oh yeah, it should be fine from what I've been told, and they don't check that. Again, that lack of knowledge really kind of like undoes and unravels it later. And the worst one, which I think is really the worst one, which is lack of communication. Communication is the bread and butter, the lifeblood of any successful relationship. Anyone who's told you that, that it's not is probably having a relationship with themselves. So I don't know if that's a little bit of a mean thing to say, but I think that that's true. Lack of communication is so important to keep all of the parties in the loop, or at least have a really good project manager who's going to oversee things, that is going to be your point of call, that is the person that is responsible to lean on all parties and all teams to get a really good thorough understanding as to how they're going with producing either the results, or checking the implementation, or giving a scope as to what they need next. So communication is, that's a really, really big one. And you guys will see here that I've included a screenshot of a migration that been managing with a colleague of mine that has gone horribly, horribly wrong. And that's because we only got the list of the URLs the day before, for the new site, the day before it was actually set to launch. We couldn't look at this in the staging site because they said that they didn't have anything ready for us to look at. And where they're badgering them, being like, well, you have to have something. You can't just say no to us. Like you have to give us access. We have to do the testing. And this is what happens. So a little bit of a bullet point as to what happened here. 10% was only redirected from our redirection plan that we originally sent through. There was no sitemap. There was no hreflang. And again, this is an international SEO campaign, so that's pretty detrimental. Missing subdirectory information architecture. So there was, there was no home pages for each of the different regions. And there was, of course, no internal links that was able to point around that, and it was not reinforced by any breadcrumbs as well, which was massive. And when we were testing this, there was the JavaScript wasn't rendering. There was no metadata associated with it. No schema, like I said before. No breadcrumbs to reinforce that IA structure. There was JavaScript redirects. And IP auto redirects, which, even Google has come out and very, very publicly said, for IP auto redirects by location, just don't do it. It's fraught with errors. It's fraught with disasters. And that's something we don't recommend. And it was crazy because when we would check giving us a 404 page, which would kind of, show all of the red flags quite clearly in any crawl. They just put the content on the page that said content 404. Go to the homepage on the content, and it was a status 200 page. My God, much swearing, much swearing. But you know what? This is also, I don't think it was completely the developer's fault, because the client said, you know what, we really, really want this to be launched for Black Friday, and we think that this is going to really help Black Friday. So we're not going to give you, the SEO team, enough time to be able to go through and check this stuff. We're not going to give the development team enough time to make sure that they've done this correctly. And it's all going to be fine. And I think this is, out of all the memes, my favorite, because really, in a lot of the times, the clients up in fairyland thinking like, this is all going to be fine. I've paid the money. I've asked for the things. I'm putting pressure on the teams, and they're just going to get this done for me, and it's all going to be sweet, and I'm going to totally dominate Black Friday because I've now got this jazzy new site that everyone's going to want to buy from. That is not a reality. It's not a reality that we live in. And of course, when that happens, it's really, really hard to plan for that, especially for any agency or any freelance SEO that's been brought on to help with this. Resources, man. They just get absolutely eaten up. So it's really, really hard to be able to say, look, we've just got to get in there and do the test, give us the only so much resources. We're going to over-service you because we believe that this is exceptionally detrimental, and they've got to really be on board with that. So that's that's kind of like in a nutshell some of the top level failures of things that go wrong. And like I said, I've had like a couple of months of this total BS. No, it's you know it's a part of the business landscape. It's just a really big thing to manage all the time. And to make sure that everyone is really understanding where the project is at any given point. And I don't know about you guys who are doing site migrations out there, but my crawlers have never been busier, and my computer is just dying. Screaming Frog, Sitebulb gets used literally every single day. Like I have a crawl scheduled after this for tomorrow because my computer can't handle it during the day anymore. But yeah, resources, man. Website migration process. Now, when I say checklist, when I say, things that we can do, what does that actually mean? So getting started, let's look at the planning phase. Now, this is a little bit of a migration checklist that we used with one of our projects, and it maps out the pre-launch phase, and is not the complete thing. It goes further down to pre-launch, launch, post-launch, and monitoring and all that sort of stuff. So it's a pretty big checklist. But this is just basically to anchor the conversation around understanding the scope of the website migration. You have to answer a lot of questions. This is not a short meeting. It's one that you need to kind of like get them a little bit ready for. Buckle in, grab some popcorn, grab your notepads, I don't know, hold a pillow to your chest, whatever you need to do to get through this, because we need to ask a lot of questions, and a lot of questions you might not be able to answer, but we really need to have feedback on. And have really, really clear timelines and deadlines to be able to help manage expectations here. You need to know who's a part of the website migration team and their roles. So who is going to be that central project manager? Is it going to be on the in-house marketing manager? Do they have all the tools at their disposal to really understand what's going on? That's going to be really, really super important to be able to define that, because, again, communication is the thing that I think really is a common denominator to a lot of the other things that fail. If you have an incomplete checklist, you can win it over with communication, because you can be honest and say, look, we didn't think that this was a part of your site, but we just randomly decided to check it one day, and lo and behold, we didn't know this because you didn't tell us, and we just found this, but hey, none of your JavaScript renders. So this is, again, communication, but knowing who's a part of that migration team and who's going to put pressure on the development team, put pressure on the in-house content team, who's doing all the upload of all the content, and for us as well, like if anything that they need to know or they're unsure of, they need to be able to let us know at any given point. So that's exceptionally important. This is where also with a checklist, we can really identify their concerns and define what their goals are. Like, what is this migration aiming to do? Is this to eliminate, say, a dynamically generating filter page issue, which on one of our sites was very much the case. We decided to canonicalize that back to the root category URL, but we did that on the current site to try and help with their migration. But defining what their concerns and their goals are is a really great way to always go back and say, look, I think the really push for this is because the navigation on your site is really something that is lacking. The menu structure doesn't showcase everything, and now we're really pushing to have faster navigation, so we can have better granularity for to be able to rank for better keywords, and for users to be able to find more granular products really quite deep in there. So understanding what their goals are is going to be really, really important, to always be mindful of that and always go back to that, so that they have a sense of you're not just listening to me, but you're being mindful of what is the overall arching thing that I really want out of this. So whatever I need to do to make that goal happen, I'm going to be a lot more respondent to the things that you're asking me and the things that you're needing from me, or me to lean on someone else to help you out. That's really what that's there to do. Explaining the risks involved and what to expect. Sometimes this can be really difficult when there's instances which are completely foreign to you. And this is going to happen for any SEO. I don't know about you, Peter, but I'm sure I'd like to think that there's at least a few things out there that make you a little bit queasy or a little bit nervous. You seem so impenetrably able to do like pretty much anything. But I'd like to even think that, there's still things that you're not sure, but like the explaining the risks involved and what to expect is really, really important. In a lot of cases, there's, say for example, like vendor APIs. This is really common with sites that are like more like marketplaces, where they'll have lots and different like smaller maybe subsidiary or other vendors that they've got partnerships with. They've said yes, absolutely. Rode NT mics, yeah, absolutely. I'm a technology outlet. I've got X amount of traffic. I've got a really great brand presence here in Australia, and we're really interested to be able to stock your products because we feel like our goals are and our values are aligned with yours, and we really love your products. Our customers love your products, and I'm sure that they would love to see that. Now they're going to have maybe an API that is going to therefore put all their products onto our site dynamically. But for an SEO, we need to make sure that transition is smooth. And we also need to know, and when I say smooth, that it's loaded in, that Google can go through, crawl it, understand it, and know like, yeah, these are all the road mics that now exist for Technology Hub Marketplace. I don't know, just pull that business name out of thin air. And we also need to make sure that the metadata is editable. I've got a client who has vendor APIs and none of the metadata is editable. I have to go back to them and say, can you please tell the mom and pop shop that they need to change their title tags and their descriptions? I kid you not. It is so frustrating. And the CMS platform that they're on will not change or amend this for their needs. They've said that if they're to change it for their needs, they're going to change it for all of their clients, and they don't see the value add of doing that, even though they pay them like an extraordinary amount of money. So again, risks, what to expect. Sometimes it's hard to always know that, but again, being honest and being really quite upfront is super important. Mapping out the tasks. Now, again, this is where a really quite thorough, robust checklist is really, really great, because then you can split out with the roles of who's going to do what, who's going to check what, and who's accountable, and keep everyone with a really great open transparency as to what's happening with that project at any given time. And at the same time, I think, again, this is a great segue to my last point. Choose the best moment to launch if you can. My God, most of the migrations that I'm doing is for e-commerce sites who have all thought, yeah, let's launch the site on this side of the year for Black Friday because we're absolute turkeys and we don't really understand that Google's going to have to re-understand your site and re-index it in some cases. And that's going to have a massive impact on your organic traffic, your keywords. And if you don't do your redirect plans properly, your backlinks as well. So this is where, things like, here, with the existing site, we're going to instead pivot our strategy. We're going to optimize this. And with a new site, we're going to go through, do all these big checks. Sorry, indigestion. And then hopefully look at having that ready by, mid-December. So then we can therefore go all to like maybe the less like on fire at right now kind of things. And then hopefully maybe launch the site in January, February, where we've looked at the Google Analytics and traffic is at its lowest and revenues at its lowest, because for them, they don't have like a massive sale period, and for customers, they're not really going out there to get widgets from them or from their competitors. So maybe that's a really good time to be able to make some big changes. That is, in the crux of it, the planning. The pre-migration preparation. Now, I'm including some memes in here because there is a lot to unpack here, and it can be fraught with issues. But I really hope that people are getting a lot of value out of it, because I can't see the chat at the moment. But okay, pre-migration preparation. It's really, really important to get from them these things. An idea of the URL structure that they want to launch. Is it going to be different? Are they going to change the URLs? Are they going to be adding, excluding URLs to this? We really need to know what they plan to be able to launch for the new site. What's happening with the meta information, with titles and meta descriptions? Are they using this opportunity to maybe make something with fallback rules, for instance? Are they going to be completely changing that as well? Or are they going to be taking all of the existing titles and meta descriptions over to the new site? Body contents and headings. Again, this pertains to the content, and a lot of the in-house teams that I know are in the throes of still adding all the content onto the site, and it's a big job. And this is where it's like, are we going to be changing anything fundamentally from the body content? Are you adding in some shipping information? Are you adding in anything or taking away? I'm going to be taking away everything more than I'm going to be adding, which leads to some interesting conversations. But again, that's a really, really good question to be able to ask. If they don't know that, that's one to always make sure that you're following up with at any stage, at every single stage of the communication, because that just reinforces that's really important for them to follow up with. Hreflang, I put this as optional because we will have like some just some like tag on the page just to say like, yeah, this is the primary audience is for Australia and it's in English, but I just put here for hreflang, that's usually for international SEO sites, and if you're not doing an international SEO campaign, it might not be relevant to you. But again, if that's relevant to you, then hammer them hard about that, because that's how you are able to distinguish between the different countries and or regions, and with the language as well. XML sitemaps. How is a sitemap being generated? That is so important, and I'm like absolutely flabbergasted that one of the site migrations that launched way ahead of where we wanted it to launch without a sitemap. How on earth are we meant to be able to find the scope of the site if that's wrong and the internal links are wrong? There's no breadcrumbs, like headaches. So of course it creates a lot more work for us, but of course, like Google has no understanding as to what is the directory, what is like your own index of your site that you're wanting to present to Google, to say like, this is everything that I have, this is everything that I want to have indexed for search, please consider me here. So again, XML sitemaps, so important. Structured data. Now, I'm not saying like, you need to also implement all the fancy structured data like FAQ schema, or even like, I don't know, pick different types of schema that aren't sort of like organizational or products or blog posting. You don't need to like, have all of that. But what you do need to have is at least organizational, website, and to be able to have breadcrumbs as well. I just kind of like to say that as a bit of a standard, because I would love to have products in there as well. But of course, I have to be a realist in this day and age, because I'm fighting to just get, if I'm fighting to get a sitemap, then it's going to be an absolute shit show to get structured data. So just trying to be a realist. I try and ask for at least that. because at the same time, like breadcrumbs, while they're not as strong as like internal links. They're stronger than navigational links, and it's a really great way for web crawlers for the bots to be able to go through and find all of the pages that you're wanting to show with the hierarchy of your site. So structured data is super important. And the load time, it's a good one to be able to just check if they're wanting to like do all this fancy stuff, and their hosting provider won't be able to support it. So I can think of 500 plus reasons why that's a good idea. Several level issues. Anyway, again, pre-migration preparation. So like I did give you guys a bit of a warning. I'm trying to be as thorough with this as possible because I'm kind of in the throes of this at the moment, and it's a lengthy, exhaustive process that I'm now taking you through, but it's so important. Oh my gosh, it's so important. I've got a really great Simpsons meme here that I made last night. And I think everyone can really relate to this, because a lot of the time, how many people, I wish I could see a raise of hands right now, but how many people have seen or heard like there's in a site migration that the site owner's like, we really want this to take this opportunity to make this leaner, more efficient, more cleaner, which to me is like, you want to gut the content, you want to smash your keyword rankings, because you won't have all the content that actually gives Google context to what all the fancy images are about. And you're going to kind of create a little disaster here for me. So I'm going to have to work you back from your dreams to something that is more of like a reality for organic search. I think we've all been through it. And it's, again, communication is so important. But this is really an important one here. So a lot of the time, check out the new layout design for UX, the functionality. If you are technical and have the ability to be able to like you look at the code and see whether it's nice and clean, it's got like it's got good syntax, and it's got all the little nice curly brackets in the right places and things like that, then go for your life. But at the same time, look for things that is really going to help with navigation. Get a scope of all the content migrated to the new site. Look, if they are not wanting to take through all this, and I've got in the background here is a bit of a snapshot of one of the documents that I sent to one of my clients, and it was like, just let me know what you are transferring over and what you are not transferring over, and then we'll go through and do some due diligence on that. What does that mean? I want to see with all the things that you're not going to be transferring over, that you're not going to be getting rid of pages that have real importance and authority, that have authority for your site. I want to be able to check historically the amount of organic traffic. I want to have a look at the keywords that they rank for, and I want to have a look at any backlinks that might be pointing to those pages. Spoiler alert, there were organic traffic, keywords, and backlinks that was to 40% of all the pages that they showed us. And the 60%, they had organic traffic and keywords, and maybe about like 10% of that had nothing. And we acknowledge that, maybe that's something that we don't need to transition over. That's fine. But for everything else, thank God we did the due diligence, because you would have gotten rid of, I think it was in the end, like 15% of their entire site that they want to get rid of, that had, I think like attributed for like maybe like, I can't remember the data, but it was just something ghastly. I'm in shell shock still. But that was really important for us to be able to communicate. So audit your content and identify the top performing pages. And that can also be a really good one for dynamically generated filter pages. If you don't know what the hell that I'm talking about, then it could come in two different ways. You could, it's basically pages that are indexed that aren't a part of your main sitemap or the main navigation or whatnot. If you've got a search bar that for whatever reason, they've decided to follow every single search results that they put in there. You can imagine what that's going to do to the crawl. It's going to be generating millions of pages over time of all this useless, cannibalizing duplicate content with thin duplicate shit contents, continuing explicitives, more about that. So that might be where you can identify the top performing pages, because sometimes some of those pages will be used by the internal team as navigational links as well, because what's easy to do, then look it up, just put it in the search bar, grab that URL and place it as an internal link. What? I've seen it happen, people, recently. Might have been 1% of the revenue, but it was 40% of the organic traffic going to the site. And that wasn't going to be included in the site migration. Yikes. So best be warned. Check your top performing pages. What are they? Where are they coming from? How are they around the site? And make sure that those are being accounted for in your redirection plan. If the URLs are to change, and to make sure that you're doing really good due diligence around those. And of course, update your rank tracking tool. Identify the keywords that are that to be the most commercially important and valuable for this company, and be able to have a bit of a litmus test as well. I think I also do this, but I forgot to add this in because there's just so much to capture. But I always add in custom reports in Google Analytics to be able to look at broken internal and external links. I just like to have that in there because I find that Google Analytics sometimes will find things that I didn't even know existed. And again, it's a little bit of a rabbit hole down that way, but at least I've got it there for these migrations. Redirect plan. All right, we've finally got to the redirect plan. So we've had the conversation, the URLs, they're going to change from old to new. So we really need to make sure that they're, that everything is in scope, and that's going to be like that. I've got, again, Simpsons memes. The second one there actually is supposed to be for a redirect chain. If that's not abundantly clear. I just thought But anyway, check and ask how the redirects are currently being implemented, and export out that list. Now, when I say check how redirects are currently implemented, maybe they're all coming through the CMS plugin, or an add-on where they've got a list of all the redirections. That's where they're all coming from. You need to be able to get that list to know how those URLs are being treated. Or they could be configured on a server, web server level through the HT access. A lot of the time, it's just a file that you can upload, and then it just has 301 redirects, and it's awesome because it's super fast and it's really cool. But again, you need to ask, how redirects are being treated across the site. And in some cases, again, I've seen this very recently. This is also why I'm never around anymore, because this is all I'm doing, folks, people. This is all I'm doing. I found that, they had, a massive list of redirects on their plugin, but they also had a massive list in their HT access file. And we had to consolidate both of those lists and have a look and see what was going on with that, to be able to inform what their redirect plan was going to look like for them. Otherwise, we get redirect chains. So get a complete list of the domains and subdomains that are going to be included in the scope of the migration, crawl them, place them in one list in a spreadsheet, check the current 301 redirect list, and create the new plan, keeping in mind to avoid those redirect chains. I think I pretty much already said that without having a look, but yeah, that's that. Next slide. Yeah. I also put this in there as I and a lot of my colleagues know that 301 redirect plans are very often ignored, even though we put a lot of time, a lot of thought, a lot of efforts into this. And for one of this, I'm just checking this to make sure that I've taken off all the branding stuff. This was completely ignored, and that's why the migration went so poorly, because I think only 10% of it was adhered to. So, yikes. Yeah, if you don't cry, you laugh. I think this whole presentation is me just slowly unraveling mentally, but here we are, people. We're in the trenches. We're in the trenches. Pre-migration testing. This is so important, and it's so important for in-house teams to really press on their development agencies or whoever's building the site to be able to give us a staging site. Again, I had to call an emergency meeting with one of my site migrations today, because I only got the staging site this afternoon, and they were going to launch this site next week. Had a look at it, and immediately it's like, oh man, all these pages, they're not JavaScript rendered. They look like they're not server-side rendered like they had promised us. And they don't have any of the fancy things that are working that they said that they were going to be working. We've got to call an immediate meeting and basically just say, look, this is going to be Hiroshima of revenue to your site. I can't believe I've said that so many times in the last couple of weeks. It's kind of insane, but a bit of like a stark look into what's when they go wrong. Make sure you get access to the staging environments. Be able to test as much as you can. I like to crawl this with Screaming Frog and have a look at the JavaScript rendering and look at the Ajax timeouts. Anything beyond 5 seconds, Google won't be able to see that. So that's a really good one to be able to test. Testing the redirects, test if the URL structure is the same as originally agreed, more often than not. Even with really, really lovely dev partner agencies, they will create as they feel because it's the easier path, and at the time, the path of least resistance. It happens. So you need to check that. Check the metadata, the titles, meta descriptions, headings, implementation. Check the structured data. Check the stage codes, status codes. I'm falling over my words here, people. You check the internal links. Now I've made a really nice little meme for this as well. I was literally this insane person last night making these, laughing to myself, but Lisa needs braces. Lisa really needs braces. No breadcrumbs, no sitemap, JavaScript links without A tags and href attributes, internal links that points to the old version of the site. It's just total garbage to troll through this and just be like, man, we're going to have a really long list of things that they need to go back and be able to check here. But, this is internal links. If you don't do it, then you're going to have massive crawl issues because, web crawlers won't be able to crawl it. Therefore, if it's not crawlable, it's not indexable. If it's not indexable, they won't, go through that list. Check the structured data. I think I've already included it with internal links, but, that's why I say breadcrumbs is such a massive, important thing to really make sure that it's there. If nothing else, dear God, check if pages have correct body content. Again, in that instance where they put the content saying that it was a page 404 and a status 200. Yeah, you got to check that. And check for broken links. Again, any good crawler, whether it be SEMrush, whether it be Screaming Frog, Sitebulb, Ahrefs have got broken link checkers. You can have one in Google Analytics as well to be able to be extra thorough. But that's going to be a really, really good one to be able to see what's going on. Checking the hreflang. This one I've made for our international SEO friends. Checking the hreflang is there and ask or check how the language tag and country regions redirect. And if you can, not if you can, I guess, but would definitely recommend to have a pop-up redirect to be able to help to guide users, both in a like a UX functionality kind of point of view, just to make sure that they're being redirected to the right region. But also for web crawls and things like that, to be able to see very clearly with the hreflang, the X default, and all the alternative country and language variations of that, that they're able to very, very easily go through and understand, this audience is for is for Australia. This audience is for the US. This audience is for the EU. This audience is from Japan. So that's really, really super important. Otherwise, you will have, Cross of the Clown here is like, what the hell was that? Like I can't find any of the products that I used to be able to find. This is total garbage. They might be nicer to you than that, but customers that I know are pretty brutal. Redirects by IP location, again. Google has come out and said, don't do this. I'm just going to leave it there because I want to move on. But just don't do that. Don't do the thing. Don't do the IP location redirect. It's just fraught with issues, and it very rarely works. Pre-migration testing. So again, this is really, really super important. Like meta robot tags. I wrote this, and I think I kind of meant to say like meta directives. So, this is where you've got, your no indexes across the site, your follow links and no follow links across the site, and to be able to go through it and test that is really, really good. There's some really, really great Chrome extensions that you can go in and use that. I think I have the Chrome extension called Web Developer, and you can literally just go in and just be able to look at lots and lots of different types of information around meta tags, view the JavaScript, view the meta robots and the meta directives in there. So that's a really, really good one to be able to test. Check for pagination. Again, pagination is a very, very common thing, and really super common with skin updates as well. I know a lot of my Shopify clients that have done site migrations have launched their new skin of their site, and we've got pagination errors across the site, and we've just wanted to basically canonicalize that back to that root URL. And Peter also reminded me, which is a really, really great point. Peter Mead, not me, Peter Majinkovic, that, with that as well, you can also add in a follow no index to those pagination issues as well. So that's really, really cool. Check the sitemap, check the robots.txt. I think that's pretty explanatory because, again, and maybe this is just because I've been hurt so bad by all those missing internal links. The sitemap is a really, really great way to be able to identify your orphan pages. They're still very much a part of the Simpsons family, but they're missing a working limb that will able to. I'm trying to use like Bart's broken leg as a metaphor for internal links, but I think I've used more of like the friends as internal links. But he becomes isolated and weird. And that's also kind of what happens in search as well. So that's really super important. And again, keeping all those things in good check is super important because, of course, when you are checking this, my gosh, whether it is in the staging site or whether it's in the live environment, the new site, if there is crawl issues, you're going to be able to see that pretty damn quickly in any good web crawler. Gosh, I really like that one. All right, so we've now gone through the planning, the pre-migration testing, all the questions, all the communication. Now we're at the stage of launch. Oh, no, launch. Hey! But we're still not out of the woods yet. This meme I did not make, so I'll just be very upfront about that right now. It's a genius meme, and I think it does a really, really great job to say, like, when you're pushing the site launch, things that were really relevant, having no index across the entire staging site, I think is very important. Don't have your staging site live. That's silly. But you want to make sure that all those things are off, so and you also want to make sure that you're not disallowing Googlebot from being able to go through and crawl it, because while I think a disallow is a hint, not necessarily a directive, it's still something that they can basically ignore, but you don't want them to be told right at the get-go, you're not welcome here. Yeah, I've just got a little poppy visitor in the background. Hey, bud. So when you're launching, the first three things to check is like the HTTP authentication, your robots, no index directives, both the meta robots and the X robots tag, and check for any robots.txt disallows. And that's when, after you've done all that, that's when you can update your DNS records. Hooray, we're starting to get a little bit out of the woods here. Awesome. Post-migration. Now, we're a couple of days in, maybe, or we might even be, we're a couple of days in, because I'm always so worried and concerned. As soon as the site's live, I'm just like, okay, test everything again. Post-migration, I go back and do all of the checks that I did in the pre-migration testing again. So we'll go through, we'll test all the URLs that are marked up in the XML sitemap. We'll look at the redirects, whether they're working. We'll look at the robots directives. We'll look at the new robots.txt. We'll look at the old robots.txt again, just to see if there's been any changes. A lot of the time, if you're using, say, like Shopify, this will just change because that's the nature of Shopify. But it's a good thing to be able to check and make sure that you're being able to look at. Actually, for a robots.txt, I've been using this really, really cool Chrome extension, which is called, let me have a look in my long, long, long list of Chrome extensions. Where are you, bud? Where are you? Oh, here we go. The robots exclusion checker. This was a Will Chrome extension developed by Sam Gibson. And you'll be able to really, really quickly see what's going on, if there's anything that is blocked or anything like that. I don't know if you guys can see this on my screen. You probably can't actually, but just in case, Google it later, robots exclusion checker by Sam Gibson. It's awesome. Go in, check your Google Analytics. Google Analytics, again, we've set up custom reports to check what's going on, but you'll also see quite clearly with some of the old pages, are these being redirected, or are they still getting traffic? If in a bad redirect plan, it doesn't take too much time to go through and pick through what's going on here. So again, check Google Analytics, check your top performing pages in Google Analytics. Again, I've just written up here, review pre-migration checklist for post-launch implementation. Again, I think I'm going to make this slide available on SlideShare. But yeah, go forth, check, do whatever you need to. And again, I think I said this earlier with Screaming Frog. You can look at the Ajax timeout after 5 seconds. It's essentially I don't think you'd even see colors. I think it's just Bart's body would just not be there because it just doesn't render, so it won't show. But you can export out all the blocked resources, which is very, very cool. Let's make the launch success official. And I think that's me because every now and then I'm just like, the JavaScript doesn't render. I've had that fear so many times with sites that are, we're not using any JavaScript frameworks. Lies. You always lie to me. So, but let's make the launch success official. So now we've gone through our checks. It's starting to look really, really good. and now we're wanting to actually really help it be gain some traction in search. So again, I like to always really push on the in-house teams to make sure that their search console is DNS verified. It basically collects all the HTTP, HTTPS, the WW, the non-WW, all the different varieties of a website, and kind of combines them into one localized search console, rather than having individual ones for each prefix. So that's a really, really good one to have. Then I like to submit the sitemap to Search Console and Bing Webmaster Tools. And there's nothing more finite than being like, yep, absolutely. We're going to say to Google, look at the URLs, index them, go forth, crawl, my pretties, and see what's happening with this new site. And please consider it just like you did with the old site, with all those redirects. And I know that the URL has changed, and I know that the metadata's changed, and I know that the layout's changed, but it's still serving the same search intent because we really tried super hard to get it right. So please, and we'll see how it goes. Again, if there's a change of address, like I think with the example, an exemplar kind of one, there is a change of address feature in GSE and in Bing Webmaster Tools. But again, I just put that in there for all the different types of site migrations. I'm trying to speak a little bit more conceptually rather than just to one. But yeah, check the JavaScript that is actually using it with the fetch and render feature. It's really, really awesome. And it's just like that final little check just to make sure in the post live that there's nothing that you missed or wasn't told or didn't check or whatever. You'll be able to have a little bit more of an idea from Google. And now to remove the staging website. Again, you really want to make sure that staging site is removed, or even like with the old website, that it is now not indexable. You can keep the site there. You just make sure it's not indexable. So all the things that we we're testing that were gotten rid of or off in the launch slide, with the no index tag across the site, or the disallow in your rebel.txt and the HTTP. Really want to make sure that that's happening for the original site, so that you don't have them running in parallel. And I've seen that, like the site that the new client that I brought on today came to me because they were saying like, look, we did a site migration, we don't think it went very well. And we know this because we've had a customer come through with a sale from our old website. And it's not a website that was from their last website, but a website from 2 websites ago. Yeah. Why do I say yes to these things? I don't know. Glutton for punishment. Enjoy a challenge. Who knows? But that's the reality that they're facing at the moment, and having some kind of horrible mutated butts and syndrome with their site. But, we do it because we care. We do it for our clients. We do it for the better success of their businesses, and for, everyone involved. Evaluating these successes of migration after all has been said and done, it really is a cause of celebration. I know, like some of my previous agencies, whenever we'd launch a site, we'd at least celebrate with a drink and just say like, job well done, my good friend. I was going to say sir, but friend works just as well. We got there. This is a really great time to reflect and say like, were all the goals met that they set at the very, very start of the site migration, to improve better functionality, to improve the information architecture of their site, to improve the competitiveness of their business, were all those goals met? And that's, something you can use to evaluate. Was a core functionality addressed? What were the most important things that you learned as an SEO and as a human being in this? I think I've learned for me personally, to never assume, to always go through and check yourself, to be positive and to be kind, and to be patient, and to really understand that when someone speaks stress, it's because one, they don't understand, they're kind of terrified because they've invested a lot of money in this process, and nobody likes to feel like they're out of control. And a lot of these things can feel a lot of the time like they're out of control. It's really super hard to have as much as we have checklists, it's really sometimes quite hard to be quite formulaic with this. You've got to think on your feet, you've got to think laterally, and you've got to really give a shit to be able to crawl all the time, to be able to go back to check, to push on the teams, and to check whether things have been done by not just you and your team, but on their team as well, so that all parties are here and accounted for, particularly if you're in that project management role. Someone needs to take a lead on that, and someone needs to make sure that project lead is being quite accountable. So that's what you can do to avoid it in the future. I think a lot of those things that I've learned through this process, has really made me a better SEO. I've learned so much from just doing things, because there's still things, I've been in SEO for 5 years now. And that's not, that's a drop in the ocean in comparison to your Peter Meads of the world, or even, Peter Majinkovic. I think you've been doing it for 10 years, I want to say. Oh, I'm your friend, and I can't remember that metric off the top of my head. I'm sorry. But you know what?
Technically, this is my first SEO job. I've been working in the web industry since 2011.
There we go. All right. Well, I said 10 years, but yeah, I guess in the industry. All right, I'll fall back on that, and hopefully I'll be safe. I hope I'm still safe from that. But you know what? I think this is a really, really good kind of ending slide for this, because I think that the three core tenements to doing site migrations and just being an SEO in general really is grit, perseverance, and initiative. And I think curiosity is a bit of a given there, but I will kind of just throw that one as an honorable mention. But I think they need to constantly be going back. They need to be constant question. They need to have a lot of leaning on, and have put your ego aside, put everything aside, ask questions. If there's something that you don't understand, it's okay to kind of use the time to make sure, because this isn't just your reputation on the line as an SEO, but it's also your company's. If you muck up a site migration, and there's been some horrible ones, that this is really super important that you that you will be accountable for this, because ASOS is a really great example of that. I don't know personally who was a part of that, but I do know that their migration was just catastrophic, and it made the news. That's really hard. I don't know the context of that, but it would be really hard to be the SEO company, even if they were giving it their all, to bear the brunt in their history for that. And at the end of the day, we have a really big responsibility to do right by the clients that we work with. So I think that's a good way to end it. With a little bit of the sage advice there from the battered SEO out in the field. But thank you so much, everybody, for your time. This is where to find me. I'm on Twitter all the time. If I'm not posting, I'm lurking. And if you've got LinkedIn, that's my little QR codes. You can I don't know where my phone is. It's not within reach, but you can just go in and use your camera and within LinkedIn, and then add me as a friend. And yeah, that's my website. So thank you so much, everybody, for your time. Woo!
Am I the only one clapping?
Awesome. Yeah, we've got some great questions there. I'm actually finally looking at the chat. And finally looking at all of your faces, I could just see the presentation. Wow, I've been talking for a lot. I'm going to grab some water. So I hope that was really, really useful for all of you guys with this stuff. And I hope that this has been really, really quite really quite illuminating. Oops, Red Miss being Webmaster Tools as BHW. Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much, Chris. All right, so usually while the presenter is talking, I'm scouring the chat for questions, but I think maybe we'll just have some questions from you guys, James or Peter, or just to kind of like follow this up. So Peter, you were saying that you've been working in SEO for 1 year. You're the most amazing junior SEO I've ever met. But I'm sure you would have seen your fair share of migration. More quite notoriously with some of the stuff you were doing last year. But what's your experience been like with site migrations?
It always depends on like the timing and the resourcing available, and also like how, like, the worst migrations are always the ones that are rushed for no reason. Like, oh my God, we have to launch because the project's been on for 2 years and people just want to get it out. They're like, no, SEO consequences, and then bang, reality hits you and SEO consequences happen. So like when I have the best migrations I have is ones where I have full control, or if the developers are fully on board and like there's a clear structured process on how stuff gets implemented. So things that I have full control over is really, really easy, even though I have messed up stuff before. But like it's all on me, because I know if something messes up, I know how to fix it because I'm the one who's supposed to do it properly in the first place. So I always prepare redirect links. Like I try to map URLs from old website to new website as one-to-one as possible. And anything else, I can either fuzzy match it or do some loose ones. And I do like redirect to the homepage for like 6% or less of all pages if possible. But I've had some horror stories like you, Nick, because you and I both have been very busy with migration. It's like migration month. It's like Shark Week or something like that. It's been migration month or something like that, like since September or so. I had a pretty bad migration happen probably a month ago with one of our clients. Essentially, it was like probably like breakdown in communication structures, website launch when it probably wasn't communicated that it was actually launched until the next week, and you look at Google Search Console data, you go, okay, that's strange. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, we pushed that live. And also stuff happening, like one of the things that happened was in this particular client's case is that they moved this website from basically a new platform. It was supposed to be a simple project, but because they're changing platform, one of the things that wasn't accounted for that became apparent about a month later was that they changed the firewall rules because they moved to Saijo as a CMS. So they had Azure's front door, which is kind of like it's basically a gateway for like what kind of traffic can hit your website, and they ended up blocking Googlebot somehow. So one day, So one Monday I come in, I see, oh wow, 75% drop in traffic. So now I'm in detective mode, and then you essentially goes, okay, why did that happen? Okay, check the index. Okay, something's off there. Check the Googlebot. Oh, DSC. Oh, there's a 4.3. So then you go, you write email, urgent in the subject line. You have to explain. The good thing is that you, as the technical SEO or the person in charge, is that you calmly explain, okay, what has happened, why it's really, really important, and why it should be urgent and prioritize the fix. And that's part of the process of doing migrations, is that you have to kind of communicate to all stakeholders, whether they're the clients, they're branding people, or they're technical people. You kind of have to explain why it's important for you to implement the things that you do, because they might just say, oh, it's just a list of things. When I explain to them, no, like redirects and some of these critical redirects have to be implemented very quickly in a migration, or else you've literally done years of damage. Like it could take months or even years to recover from some of the damage that you've done if you implement something poorly. because essentially something gets removed from the index. All the equity, years and years of equity that's been accrued over time has been built, has now been lost, and now you're starting again from scratch. So instead of being number 1 and number 2, you're now number 6, and you have to climb, and that'll take you a while because your competitors are ahead of you now. So everything that you worked so hard for, you've lost. So yeah, that's my experience with migrations. The stuff that's easiest is the smallest websites that you have full control over. And different kind of clients have different different kind of challenges, I should say. Like sometimes something that should be easy if it's your website could take a month, like even getting like access to something. Like I need access to this. Getting that approval is actually one of the hardest things with some really, really large organizations. It has to go through multiple people. It'll sit in the back of someone's task list. Everyone's under the pump because we're all working from home, etc. So sometimes like that's the challenges with the timeframes and the timing and people get impatient. So the ideal migration is a migration that you complete in UAT or pre-production. And then you just say, okay, let's launch this in February in 3 months. It's fine. It's all done. And we just set a time because everything's perfect. That's the perfect type of migration. So what about you, James? You work a lot with clients moving from website to website, but you work from a different space to us with SEO. What kind of challenges did you experience?
Yeah, so for me, from a pay perspective, it's a little different. So it's not about traffic crashing really quickly. It just turns off, right? It'll basically say it's disapproved for all the ads because the landing page doesn't work. So when you're doing a migration from a perspective, you need to be involved in that process. So you need to know, okay, how are the URLs going to change? So that you can actually go into your back end, get it all ready, and then when it goes live, upload it all, right? So that's what you need to do from a pay perspective. If the IA is changing, is that going to change the structure of your ad account? Is the complete structure changing, which is going to affect your quality score at the end of the day? So if that's going to happen, then you might have to go back through it, remap it, and get all that reapproved, write all new ad copy. The bigger the account, the more time that's going to take. So if you're building a large enterprise account and if it has 700 odd campaigns, that might take you 2 weeks to build it, right? So there's that time investment part there. So with paid, it's not so much being involved at the very beginning, but once everything's been figured out, that's when you need to get involved so you understand what you need to do. It's not as much to do, but there's still things that you need to get done.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the case with one of the migrations, actually the one that only 10% was migrated that I shared earlier in the slides. They're having massive issues because none of their Google ads are working whatsoever. And we're working really hard with the development agency where we're giving them updates every day, if not every second day, just to kind of go through and check that. That's actually the call that I've got scheduled for after this. It's for a follow-up tomorrow. Yay. But they've really expressed a lot of frustration because during this usually I think they just think, oh yeah, well, we'll have some Google ads just to kind of prop us up, while organic kind of, sorts itself out. And now not even that's kind of working for them. So I think it's a real point of contention there when migrations don't go right for both of those teams. I think I'm just looking back in the comments. Peter Mead makes a really, really good point here. He says, I like to recommend a phase migration if possible. Migrate in sections. The results of a poor migration will cost much more money to fix than taking the right approach first. I think that's a really, really good argument to make, to be able to launch things in sections, because with a smaller amount of scope, you have a lot more, I think, ability to be able to have things and check things and make sure that things that maybe from a content loading perspective or from a functionality perspective with JavaScript, if that's not happening well, that you can still at least upload that. Again, that's something that's really difficult, I think, sometimes to always communicate, because and I'd really like to know your perspective on that, Peter. But I've found whenever I've introduced the idea of phase migrations, I think it's confused the hell out of them. To say like, we can't just go the whole thing live. Like, no, like, what do you mean we can only, we can look at just doing like, just doing maybe like the blog section, something that, if it completely messes up because we don't know how it might go, it's not gonna have like some massive detriment, and we can use that almost like to test it as like a viable option. So yeah.
Phase migrations are really interesting. I guess the biggest resistance, especially from a dev team standpoint, is that it's very technically difficult to do. Like if you have like, say, you're going from platform A, which could be like a Windows server, IIS or whatever, and you have like something that's like a custom LAMP stack, and then you have like a WordPress, you have like multiple platforms all talk to each other. Like to do that, you have to do like reverse proxying and all that kind of stuff. The fortunate thing is that we're in 2020 now. Actually, it's not a fortunate thing that we're in 2020. Hopefully 2021 comes along soon. But but we're in a space where it's technologically possible to actually do this more easier. So I've been indoctrinated with like Cloudflare worker stuff for quite a while now. But one of the things, because I think it's like a duty for me as a technical person and a technical SEO, is actually follow what devs are doing. Because like the stuff I kind of listen to is like dev podcasts and how they use stuff like Cloudflare workers. And one of the things that they do is actually partial migrations and phase migrations like this, where they'll have, say, for example, a legacy system with like legacy booking form, that kind of stuff. And they'll only implement, in a blogging session, we'll route it so that we'll only have this part of the worker. So your workers, you'll do route to that, and that will point to a different server, but that will have the new type of website. So it's like a new template, kind of similar, very similar to like how like the long tail UX kind of stuff works for that kind of service. And that way you kind of actually roll it out in different sections. So you say, okay, for PLPs, we're going to use this new filter for this kind of thing, but we'll keep search the same, that kind of stuff. So like it's getting more and more possible to do these like piecemeal things. But in order for us as SEOs to do recommended, we really have to understand how to make it as easy as possible for developers to do it, because that's one of the things that a lot of SEOs can't really do, is like say, okay, well, you can just do Cloudflare workers, you route the worker to this, do this, put your dev server on this particular platform, and then stage 1 will do that, stage 2. Because like, it's not really that, it's not something that most SEOs can do. And also most devs aren't even aware of it at the moment as well. So like if it can work, it actually really works really well. And it also gives people an out so that they can actually use newer features in the same time as keeping old features that they really are mission critical to their business needs. And that's the biggest resistance with like replatforming and that kind of stuff, is like the different confluences of technology and trying to get them to mix together. But like there's ways and methods to do it. One day, hopefully, it'll just be like a plugin that manages all your DNS stuff and all your routing and that kind of stuff, and you can plug into whatever platform you want, and SEO will just be like magic. We're not on that day yet. It's technically possible, but there's no such product that exists at that stage. But I hope one day that the future of migrations kind of changes it so that this kind of stuff actually becomes easier. That's even someone who's non-technical can just implement it with a couple of flicks of the switch.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you brought up Cloudflare, because Cloudflare is doing some absolutely amazing things with being able to have a lot more coverage over with redirects and with changing the header tags without needing to like actually influence that on the site. It kind of acts as like a bit of an intermediary. And also I'm using Cloudflare as a means to be able to like hook that in with log file analysis as well. So yeah, it can be really, really powerful. I'll go on to Daniel Chung's question. Client has an internal dev tech team. Do you or us as the SEO provide instructions on what to do, or do we only scope out SEO responsibilities? Again, I think, sorry, James, is probably one for us as well, but I'll get back. I'll whip in some GA questions for you later. But I think with internal teams and things like that, I find that they're my favorite kinds of conversations to have, because they're not thinking about cost. They're thinking about what's right for the company. And I think that mentality difference is really the thing that I tap into, because say with one of my clients, again, like with the dynamically generated filter pages, that was the whole reason for the migration. And I think with the migration going so poorly, I wanted to kind of cut through the middle and say, like, look, this is why you're wanting to migrate. You're wanting to do this, and maybe pick up a couple of other opportunities on the way. But the agency that you've contracted to do the dev elements of this, the actual design of the new site, is poor at best at communication, and we have no coverage. You have no coverage as to what they've actually built for you with all your money. So instead of launching this blind for a site that gets 2 million per month in revenue, why not delay the launch until like January, February of next year, and actually solve the issues that you're wanting to actually do. So worked really closely with them and worked through a workable logic to canonicalize it back to that root category and subcategory pages, which again pushes the authority from 5.4 million URLs to like a scope of only 7,000. So that's going to have some really, really great impacts on them, particularly coming up to Black Friday and things like that. And we think that that's so much more of a responsible response than trying so hard to kind of like work with an agency who is doing their best to shut us out. So maybe that's it's an answer within an example. But providing instructions as to what to do and only scoping out SEO responsibilities, I think it doesn't educate as to why they're important. I think as any good SEO will be able to do, if there's something really complex and technical that you can't explain simply, then you don't understand it. Or you can't communicate it, and either one of those avenues is really quite challenging for you as an individual, as an SEO, and for anyone who works with you, because you won't feel like you're being heard, and they will feel like you're trying to bamboozle them. So that's really, really hard. So I scope out SEO tasks and responsibilities, but at every single point of the way, I explain why it's important and what impact it will have and how critical it is. Do this first. And if we aren't missing out on those things, like I'm a realist too. Deadlines are a thing, and we can maybe like look to implement some of these other things after the fact. But these things, if you don't have them, it's going to be detrimental for you as a company. What's your response, or what's your take on that, Peter?
Well, talking about because it's very specifically about internal tech dev teams, so I'm going to assume that this is talking about clients that have in-house developers, that kind of that. So to us, that relationship is very different than clients who have agencies who do the development work. So for us, it's more like we're actually part of the development process, and then our role in that is to provide the SEO component. So and even stuff that's not even related to SEO, very non-priority for an SEO. For example, around about the 19th of October, JB Hi-Fi, you might have noticed, have changed their navigation. So they switched from the classic yellow nav to a white, a different navigation. Whoa, James popped off.
Yeah, his internet just crashed. He's just sent me a message.
Okay. So for example, JB Hi-Fi have redone their navigation. So it was actually not much from an SEO standpoint that I can input, but still my responsibility to be in 6 meetings every single week in, week out during the whole UX thing and all that kind of stuff, just to be the SEO voice in the room. So that way I can say, okay, that's all great. Love the changes to the breadcrumbs. The filter thing I'm kind of concerned about. Let's not do that phase 1, that kind of stuff. So that's my kind of role. Other role, it also depends on the client, is where you can have to kind of educate the client and also tell them how they can also test for SEO issues as well. One of our clients, T2, it became more, I ended up, instead of just creating lists and documents, I ended up just recording tutorial videos on various things with schema, because it was actually a lot more easier for them to actually understand how to test for schema, and then for them to actually test it themselves in order for them to actually solve a problem. Because I don't have the internals of their Commerce Cloud set up. So I can say, they go, what's causing this issue, Peter? I'm like, I don't know. There's something in the back end that's doing it. But here's the output of the pages. I can see these patterns. So maybe check these templates, that kind of stuff. But here's all the resource provider list and developers just like churn it out, that kind of stuff. So like it honestly depends on your relationship and like your client's relationship to SEO as a component, like as a deliverable. Like our clients are a lot different than a lot of other agency clients because they're almost all tier one kind of clients. They're like all on retainers. Like we've had them for years and years and years. And like our goal is just basically just to service them. So like to them, they understand the value of SEO. At least hopefully they understand the value of SEO. Some of them don't.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah. So like they understand that SEO is like a resourcing, the same thing as development, that kind of thing. So like for you as the agency provider, like you have to really work with the dev team. But then again, my role is quite unique. My role didn't exist in the company before like a year and a half ago because like today we had a meeting for Google Analytics for a client I've talked to you about before, Nick, in regards to like changing from GA. And my role in the meeting is basically like they talk about it, they mention Vue. I say, oh, are you building your own Nux? And they say, yes, we are building our Nux. Okay, blah, 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 boring tech nerd stuff. So that way they can actually, they understand they're not just talking to an SEO with a checklist or a spreadsheet, they're actually talking to someone who understands the technology platform they're in. And I can actually think about ways, okay, we're going to do this, then we'll have to use the history API in Google, in the browser to actually push stuff to the data layer and that kind of stuff for Google Analytics. So they actually know that they're talking to someone that they can talk to at a certain level and they can actually speak a little geek to. And that way we can we're kind of on the same page because sometimes you just give devs a list of something, then they do stuff, but they're like, oh no, they've done it wrong. One of the reasons why is probably you don't understand the workflow or the technology platform that they're on. And if you communicated it in a different way, you would have gotten it right the first time. Yeah,
100%. And I really, really liked what you said about, just like filming, yourself, going through and doing these checks and sending it to them so that they've got something to do that. I've done something similar with with Screaming Frog, just going through doing configure, spider, going to render page, checking from text edit down to like JavaScript, changing that to 5 seconds with the Ajax, and then going through to extraction, scrolling all the way down, and then putting in the resource HTML, checking both of those ones at the top, at the bottom of the thing, pressing, and now that they know how to be able to see what does or doesn't actually render on the page using Screaming Frog, so that they know how to be able to test this themselves, so I don't have to go through and crawl them that much, which is again really, really important to be able to again explain why it's important, why you need to constantly go back and be able to check, and then how to be able to go in and check. Daniel Chung, you're answering. You're asking.
He's taking my job this time.
I love it.
He's seen
the baton has been passed.
Yeah, he's seen the gap, and now he wants to ask all the questions.
Good on you, mate. Love it. Dan's next question: how often should all the teams involved with the migration meet? Assuming it is a large site business, not your usual 50-page SME. How do you recommend how comms is handled? Not emails, right?
I actually like emails. I actually think emails are like a source of truth. It's a document. And everything that it's a form of accountability, because I think he had a follow-up message. I saw him because I had the chat open here, which is kind of weird because you see yourself and then you see the chat. Yeah, so exactly. Clear, concise, and concrete. So like we usually have like a master checklist that no one almost uses. So like I guess that's not good advice. But essentially we know like we have like probably a meeting before the migration, like this understanding what particular thing that we have to do. We won't have that many whips depending on the client. Like there might be like a month, like in the month heading into a migration, there might be like some regular meetings, especially when deadlines get tighter. Like for example, we want at least 2 weeks to implement all the analytics stuff. We expect all the content to be in there before X amount of time in order to meet those ones. Everything that he's written there, no, for clients. The reason why is because if you have too many channels that you have with clients, it becomes a communication black hole. Like we have a couple of clients on Slack, and I actually hate it, as I'm not a fan of it, because essentially you're doing your task, you've allocated your hours of the day, and all of a sudden the client's actually messaging you, but they don't understand the context that, well, I have 3 hours today slotted for redirect mapping. They don't even know what that is sometimes. So like they don't understand that you're kind of busy. So I actually prefer asynchronous communication, so emails, that kind of stuff, and then everyone understanding the communication channels of how things will get done. So to answer the question of how often meetings, as few as possible, but with everyone understanding what needs to be done as much as possible. If that's why clear, concise, and concrete. Like it's solid.
Yeah.
Like, this has to be done. Everything that's done poorly with communication is usually because someone doesn't notify you that they've pushed something live or they've implemented a change that you've been waiting for. So like, you end up testing every 4 days, saying, have they done this? Have they done this? Which is bad communication. Which I'm guilty of probably both ends recently, which led to a bad outcome. But, that's what happens when you have multiple different people converging. People go on annual leave and things happen when people on annual leave. And then, it becomes a communication, that kind of communication, like hurricane or whatever. Just like, you just don't know what's happening.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Yeah.
But you're in a wind tunnel of wind tunnel of comms.
Yeah. For Daniel's specific question, I don't actually like using client communication platforms. I prefer to keep stuff simple: Google Docs, Google Sheets, email, as much as possible. Because you don't have to adjust. You don't have to train a client to use your systems. You're more flexible when you work within your client systems. I think that's what, as agency providers, unless you're building the websites yourself as well. There's some SEO agencies that also do website development. Unless you're doing that yourself, I actually don't think that. I think that you should conform to your client or the agency who's building the website, to be honest with you, or their internal platforms. Like if our clients use Windows Teams, I don't like it because one of my headphones doesn't work in the system or whatever, but we have to use Windows Teams for the meetings because that's what they use. Use Google Meet, but like still, use Google Meet.
Yeah, and I'm the same as you with that. Sorry, I just realized that I think I have an 8 o'clock. Is that an 8 o'clock meeting? Oh God, sorry.
Meeting. Jeez, Nick.
Yeah, it's a madhouse here at the moment. But hang on, we'll just double check that for 1 second. But yeah, I'm exactly the same. Microsoft Teams, but I do like cloud-based things because I like to use slides. I like to use the spreadsheets and Google Docs to be able to send things, and we just keep them all in a centralized thing. So I'll just go and look at the next question, and if someone wants to take that. My phone, it's just out of frame. 1 second.
How do you find all these images? Do you have a mental library of every frame of every single from every season? Is that out of context? Is there like a reference to that?
It's reference the Simpson memes in the presentation. So it's Nick.
That's very specifically a Nick question. Nick, this is a very specific question for you. She can't hear us. Nick, this is a question about where you find your meme images.
Oh, Google. Google, and then Google, and then I just edit them in Keynote because I'm lazy and I can't be bothered to open up Photoshop and do all the things. Plus, I don't actually know, this computer doesn't have Photoshop. My home computer does, or my non-work computer does. And that was a notification to crawl the site for tomorrow.
Okay, so it wasn't a meeting. It was just a reminder to do your screaming frog. Is screaming frog like tapping on the window?
No.
What happened there? Oh, Nick's gone quiet.
Nick, you're gone. We can't hear you.
Nick, we can't hear you. You went for a weird reverb. There we go.
I think I gesture a lot, and I've got a really weak USB connection. So the Rode mic gets unplugged and then it automatically mutes it. I think that was what was happening.
Okay.
Yeah, awesome.
Next question.
Yes, next question. Ooh, this one's for you, Peter. This may be a question for Peter Michinkovich. Do you need to redirect a query string which had a custom URL to a new query string if the original was not indexed by Google in the first place? Woo.
Okay, so probably the answer for that is probably not. It depends because like you can probably check it in Google Search Console first to see if Google selected a different canonical for that URL. Because in that situation where the original is not indexed by Google but it's crawlable, in all likelihood, it's probably being canonicalized. Like Google's either made a decision or you probably didn't have that. If in the case where it is indexed, if that question was different, if it was indexed, there are situations where you might redirect the query parameter, but instead you might want to do like a pattern redirect, depending on how you're doing redirects. You might want to redirect all the URLs from the query string to a single endpoint URL, or you can just let it all just flow naturally and just allow the query strings to kind of canonicalize anyway. So like it probably has little impact. It's because with this particular question, if the URL was not indexed by Google in the first place, it's probably a URL that doesn't matter. So this is probably like the lowest priority that you have in regards to your migration. Like it's not exactly a Sophie's choice. Like, do I keep this URL? Do I redirect this URL? Do I redirect it to the canonical, or do I keep the URL parameters? It's not exactly a Sophie's choice in this scenario. But I can think of examples where we have URLs that have query parameters, but we have a very specific version of the query parameters that's the canonical due to platform limitations, our favorite thing. You can't do it in this system. Well, damn it, we'll have to do custom page titles and rank the one of the query string then. But yeah, there's situations where you have to preserve that one. But like, again, if it's not indexed originally in Google, then you don't have to, honestly, because it's definitely not important unless you have a juicy link somehow towards that particular query parameter, which happens. People like click on one of James's ads and then they'll write an article about the product and then they'll copy it and still has GCLID, it still has this, and this, and like, but the link juice.
Delicious.
Thanks for the question, Gregor. I do want to see you again when we're in person. So,
SEO Meetup, bringing friends together online. There we go. But speaking of friends, big shout out to Jason Barnard's.
Jason, we love the tool.
Oh man, absolutely loved the videos that you've been putting out, especially with the ones with the graphics behind. They look so awesome and dynamic. But yeah, shout out to Jason, who is in Paris. Wee. Yeah. All right, next question. Mark Selby asks, which platforms do you find to be the most challenging for migrations and why?
There's many ways you can go about this question. Like if you're just talking about pure limitations, everyone would just say like Wix. Like if you have to go to Wix, that'll probably be like the worst situation for everyone involved. But I'm going to answer the hardest one.
Wix. Transfer over to anything else. Anything.
In general, the ones that's most challenging for migrations will be anything that is not self-hosted, anything that's hosted. So Shopify, Squarespace, all of those kind of platforms. And the reason why is because you lack a level of control from an SEO standpoint to do stuff. So like redirects are challenging. Consolidating, like in Shopify, you could only do one-to-one redirects. Anything else will have to be a chain redirect, and those kind of things are really, really challenging, especially when you're limited with the URLs, you're limited with robust text, you're limited to anything that you can modify. Now, these differences are slowly being eroded away with Edge SEO becoming more accessible for us SEOs. Like developers can do interesting stuff, and now we can kind of have that with tooling as well. But fundamentally, those are the hardest platform migrations. If you want to go on the other end of the spectrum, one of the on the other side of the most challenging migrations is actually the other one, where you go headless and you have a completely custom front end build, because it's not actually, the problem is not that you have limitations, that you have no limitations, and it's up to you to actually design the system perfectly. So you have to design, like, okay, there's no magical plugin for sitemaps, or maybe there is for Next.js or whatever. So you have to make sure that that works properly. You have to make sure all the components are done correctly. You need to make sure that the CMS produces the routing that you want for the end URLs. And you have to make sure that the new Node.js server can handle all those redirects. So it's more, even though you have more flexibility with a custom design platform, it's more challenging because it's harder to fix things when things go wrong, because that actually involves development work, and development work is resourcing, it's talent, it's that kind of thing. Like if you have something in like an exotic language or an exotic platform and the developer's gone, then where are you going to find that resource? Like anyone can hire a React developer these days, but like if something was like a really exotic thing that was like kind of okay 5 years ago, but gone now, then where you got to find someone who actually knows that, like, that particular language, that particular syntax, that particular thing. So those are probably two different ends of the spectrum, the most challenging, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I pretty much have the same opinion, and I think, you know, I've even shared some of the literature charts with you as to what some of the more complex ones might look like.
My favorite chart to look at, I was like, oh wow, you're using Apollo and you're using Next.js, and oh wow, Lambda and this. I'm like, oh, I do it this way, but that's why I kind of want to look at the, like, what you actually have to work with, because I like, oh, I could do it this way. I wonder what Nick's gonna do. Like, yeah,
absolutely. But
hear about the time frame.
So I will ask a question specific for James. Sorry. But absolutely, like everything that you said with custom with custom CMSs, for me, I think it's just like with the creativity that the developers have got, they pull out of the hat a lot of things that I think that creativity, like that's something that they really wanted to explore and to be able to do. And conceptually, it sounds awesome. But for us, you know, we're working within parameters that we don't always quite understand. And if they're not very good communicators with being able to either show or explain the logic. Sorry, my dog's eating something and I don't know what it is. Anyway, if you can't pick up either two of those things, then it's going to be really, really difficult for you to be able to get a full scope of the site and all the different things. What are you eating? All right. James, my question for you is when we're doing like migrations and things like that, what are the kinds of things that you need to be aware of with Google Tag Manager? So of course, when we're transitioning over from old site to new site, we're placing over our Google Analytics and our GTM tags to be able to make sure that it's all happening there, all fine and dandy. But of course, GTM, you know, it will be with with triggers for old URL paths that don't exist anymore. So what do you sort of do to sort of take stock and audit that?
So you need to go through, essentially, it's not a quick process, especially if it's an old GTM account, because they get very, very messy. You have to actually go through the entire account and go through each trigger and each variable, everything you've got in there, and actually audit it. It's okay, do I need to change anything here? And especially now with GA4 coming out, you've got to even do that again when you go to GA4, make sure that nothing needs to be changed. So if you're changing over from Google Analytics to Google Analytics 4, then you have to look at if you're in e-commerce, then you need to look at your trigger for e-commerce. It's changed. So there's a whole lot of things you have to look at. And as long as you're going through your tag manager and you're checking all that, you're going through all your goals, and you're checking your destination goals. Do you have any regex in there that you need to alter? So what kind of regex is it? Obviously, we know regex in analytics isn't real regex, but you still need to check it, right? You need to check everything and double check it and triple check it, and actually audit it. A proper GA audit should be around 100 pages. If you're looking at everything, if you're going through each part, each admin setting, if you're checking all your channel groupings, if you're checking everything, it should be a pretty big audit. And then what you then need to do is sit down with the client and take them through it page by page. Don't skip over it. Go page by page, explain what it is, explain what it does, and why it's important to fix it. Because otherwise, they won't give you the time to do it. And then when it launches, well, it's not to say I've gotten revenue in my GA. Well, that's because we haven't fixed it yet. Right, so it needs to be within that time frame. It needs to be planned out. It needs to be planned out pretty much. You want at least, for a large one, at least 2 weeks to go to do the audit, and then at least another 2 weeks to implement. So if you're planning it to do it, you start once they're getting ready to deliver. You should be your GTM stuff should be done. Should go live on the same day. It should be simultaneous. It shouldn't be, I'm going to set my GTM live the day before, because that makes no sense. You've got to lose a day of data. So it has to be on the exact same day. It has to be done correctly. And as long as you're doing all of that correctly, as long as all your UTM codes are still relevant, as long as all that's still working, you shouldn't have any issues. But if you do it wrong, you're going to see a cliff. in conversions or in revenue or in whatever you're tracking, it's going to just die.
So when you say at least 2 weeks, to be able to conduct the audit, and then is it another 2 weeks to be able to go in and do the implementation? Is this at the point 2 weeks, in the pre-testing?
So
for pre-launch.
It's pre-launch. Is all that's done is all done pre-launch. I would get once the SEO, when you guys have done the SEO, and you've actually mapped out the migration, you know exactly what it's going to be. That's when you'll start the audit. Because until you know how it's going to change, until you know what you look out for, you don't know what to audit. So you could go into GA account and audit it now, but if you haven't done any of the redirect mapping, right, you don't know what that's going to be. How do you know what to change, right? You can say I might need to change this, but you don't know for sure. So it happens pretty much while you're getting through the whole process, and once it's all been signed off on and you finalize that structure, that's when you start the audit.
Right. Yeah, and sometimes you can't really get the final form of the new site from either party.
Yeah.
So yeah, in a perfect world, you would get that.
Perfect world.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's done post-launch when everything's gone up in flames. But either way, it has to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were saying about channel groupings. This is something that you and I have worked closely together to go through and identify. But just for the purpose of what is the first of all the clear true identifier that the channel groupings between your organic, your paid, your referral, other is tracking incorrectly, and what are and then after that, if I can guess a bit of a sense as to why the common issues as to why that happens.
Sure. So you should never see other. If you see other, you've got an attribution issue. Issue, you've got to fix it. But clear signs of bad channel grouping. If you go into referral, you will see m.portal.afterpay, pay.shopify, all those kind of payment gateways shouldn't be there. And what it's actually doing is click attribution is saying, cool, this is the last click. It's getting all the credit. So you need to referral exclusion those out. But common one, you'll see social in referral. It doesn't know the difference. Analytics doesn't know that social is social. It thinks it's referral. But as we saw when we looked at it a little while ago, is we saw google.com in referral traffic. That means that for whatever reason, during that session, it didn't know that google.com was organic traffic. And it'll do the same thing for Bing. It won't know the difference. Bing will generally be found in referral traffic. So you need to go back in and remap that. Same with Baidu, it's always found in referral traffic. So and these are all done because with analytics, the way that it comes out of the box, anything that's from another site, it thinks that it's referral traffic. So if you've got paid social media running and social media running, you need to exclude those out and separate them. And the only way to do that is by remapping analytics for the social and saying anything that has Facebook/referral, Instagram, and so on that contains Facebook goes to social, and your paid social needs to have your UTMs done in the correct way. So your source is paid social, medium is the medium it's coming from, right? Or you can do it the other way around. People can do both ways, but I generally do the source as paid social, right? And then what I then do in the mapping is I go source and medium equals paid social, and I do all the different variations. So if anyone does it the other way around, it still maps correctly. So, but what you also need to be careful of is if it's an older site, don't go rewriting over the default. Leave that as your control and just create a new one. Clone that one there, clone the default, rename it. Because the default will have all the channels you're going to be using, and you add your extra ones you want to add to it, and then you go back into things like your organics and your organic ones, and then you're adding in Yahoo, you're adding in Bing, you're adding in Baidu, so it all maps correctly. So as long as the mapping's done that way and it's done correctly, you will find that historically the data's going to be corrupted. You can't fix that. But the good thing about channel groupings is when you start a new one and you remap it, it will actually move things around. It's adjustable. It's one of the only parts of analytics that's historically adjustable. So as soon as you create a new one, it will adjust it.
Yeah.
So that's what you need to do there.
And when you say if you're wanting to change anything in the channel groupings, that's you should make a copy of that. You mean make a copy of that whole property?
No, so you would make a copy. You should have a testing property to test everything on first. So you should be editing any big changes go into testing. But if you're doing it in a filtered view, in your main view, when you go into channel groupings, so back in your admin panel, channel definitions, channel groupings, you will see that it's called default channel groupings. And you can clone the default, and it will actually take all that data and clone it. And then you can work on a new channel grouping without touching the default. So that way the old data stays there, doesn't get corrupted. And then all you have to do then is every time you're going into channels and look at channel groupings, change from default to the new one, and they'll have more nice, clean, segmented data that you can attribute back correctly. And that way, if you ever go into it and you want to change it, if you make a mistake, for instance, and you're still seeing other, you can go back into that, change it, and it'll adjust it for you. You don't have to write. It's not as big of an issue if you make a mistake because it will adjust. But I would always recommend go into your test. If you're unsure, set up a testing view, and try it in the testing view first. If you make a mistake there, the worst thing you need to do then is delete that view and start and try it again.
Thank you so much. That's awesome. I think that we're 8:10 now. Let's put it to the group. Jason's got a really fun question here that is not about site migrations, and we've mentioned Wix here a few times. What do you hate about Wix? Woody Oberstein, who is former Nik Ranger, a really lovely guy, has just moved over there and is convinced the SEO community has got it wrong. I'd be really interested to find out what Morty's opinions are, but I think,
no Wix, no. We're not even gonna dig to find out an answer. Just like that. That being said, I am more than happy to take a challenge and rank any platform anytime. Like I find that fun. I actually like working limitations. But the question before was like, what platform we think the worst is? I mean, Nick's slide had Wix as like the worst platform. It was like moving from this to this is an improvement. So like, like I honestly haven't worked that much with Wix because I guess we just haven't. I mean, it's not the type of clients we attract. I mean, thankfully, hopefully that keeps that way. So do you work a lot with Wix sites, Nick? Do you have any horror stories?
Well, to be honest, like, I think, Gaston's here too. Hey, Gaston.
Oh, Gaston. Our favorite.
Yeah. I think it's opinion of the business that until fundamentally Wix changes the way that they do things, that we don't really take them on as clients. We don't take Wix sites because I think we can maybe like improve some organic traffic and rank them for some keywords, but the limitations I think from a business perspective are so great that we don't really want to have our name associated with that. I think that's kind of like the tagline that we've had from that side. So we've actually advised clients that it's probably better for them, in the long run, to look at doing a site migration away from that. And a lot of the time, like, we'll do the due diligence. There's something happening that, sorry if it's cutting off.
You kind of cut off. It's like the one thing you have to know as an SEO is, and then you get frozen. So that happens every
time. The meaning of life is, so I think, I don't have a lot of experience working with Wix. I mean, I've only really, I've worked in, I've never opened up a Wix site. I do have an idea of like the Wix, this kind of like the Shopify thing. It's like the site speed is a bit of a concern. I think something about like canonical tags, like that's really difficult. Again, no access to the HD access or sitemap, very much similar to Shopify. And I think it's kind of like doing SEO on hard mode with limitations and things like that. I think a lot of the time, the clients that come to us who are on Wix don't have amazingly large budgets. I don't think any site owner who's pretty serious looks to Wix as a serious platform. I think it's seen there as like the hobby shop CMS. And no disrespect to hobby shops, but like like the second the part-time job that we're not really taking too much credence in here. Gregor Sandy is adding his sense in here, but it is expensive because it takes so much time, even a simple page update. Yeah, 100%. And that's kind of what I was saying before. Like a lot of the time, they don't have the budgets to be able to commit the time to be able to like play around and do these kinds of things. So again, like the improvements that we could make would be very small, and we really want to make sure that we're any one of our clients that we take on, we know with some certainty that we can actually really go out and help them. Otherwise, we give them audits. We give them audits of what we recommend that they can do. We let them on their merry way, and in 6 months we check in and see how things are going. But yeah, I think Gregor makes a really good point there that it just takes a lot of time to be able to do things.
So if you landed a Wix client, would your first recommendation be to re-platform? Like, would it be worth the re-platforming?
I think the standard SEO answer is it depends. It depends on the client, depends on the budget, it depends on their goals. I have not had to have that question for me personally, but my colleagues have. My colleagues, yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. It would be really interesting to see what he does with Wix. But yeah, my colleagues have basically said, look, we recommend that for you, if you want to be able to, see some results, not in years and years, but maybe in a shorter period of time than that, maybe like 6 to 12 months, this is probably not the platform for you. So I think, that's the advice that we've given, and we think that that's the one that reflects what we can actually provide for our clients.
As an SEO, how much input do you have with a re-platforming decision? Like, do you recommend a CMS? Do you recommend development agencies? Like, what level of input do you actually give to like a client who says, our system doesn't work, it's like antiquated, it's proprietary, whatever? Like, what do we do?
Yeah, absolutely. In a lot of cases, it's about hearing what their goals are. What do they want to be able to achieve with their site at large, irrespective of whether or not a migration is in play. If they're wanting to have like better functionality, or if they're wanting to change their CMS, like where I was showing in the slide presentation before about the different types of migrations. Each one of those will have very specific goals that they will have in mind, like particularly with like a website redesign, or changing the site architecture of that, or merging sites so that they're consolidating their marketing budgets. Understanding the goals, first and foremost, is the only thing that I think really matters, apart from budget. What you'll be able to do. So based on that information, I will often recommend CMSs that I think for their skill level, their team skill level, and for what they're wanting to do with the site and how they're wanting to scale that site, what kind of platform makes sense to them. Because your WordPresses are going to be pretty flexible with what you can do. It's an open source site, and you can make some really pretty things on there. but again, it's sometimes not always that user friendly for some people because it's so customizable. Shopify may be the good option, but Shopify as well, you have to pay for that, and it's not cheap. So again, it's just taking into consideration what their goals are, and finding a solution that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Cool.
I think that's yes, but they have great booking systems for small businesses. They can be expensive to really enjoy. Yeah. 100%, Gregor. I think that's a really great place to end it. I think we're all really super hungry. It's 8:20 at night.
It's so hot. Like it's so hot. Like it's ridiculous. Like as soon as it starts, I'm just gonna take the shirt off. This is like
yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, on that glorious note, thank you so much, Peter and James, for your time. It's been a real pleasure to be on this call with you, and doing this webinar. I think this has been really, really useful for a lot of people out there. For a lot of people who are going through site migrations, considering migrations, or sifting through the total white noise of bullshit when it goes wrong. So yeah, thank you so much for your time, guys. If I had some music to play us off, I would play that. But Peter, how will people find you after this? Is it LinkedIn, Twitter?
If you want to get in touch with me, the best place probably is LinkedIn. So like just you can search my name. It's very unique. Just Google it, Peter Macinkovich. If you search Peter Macinkovich, the word wife, you can actually see Google pop up my wife's name and all that kind of stuff. I'm like fun little SEO experiments like that. So yeah, find me on LinkedIn. You can also follow me on Twitter if you want. And if you want to email me for whatever reason, it's just my first name dot my last name at gmail.com. So yeah, but I can't take on client work. Go for the agency. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's
James,
yeah.
Awesome. And James, how are people able to find you after this to ask you questions?
LinkedIn, as always, full name is LinkedIn. You'll find me. Otherwise, go to the website thecomplainer.com, send through an inquiry form, and I'll get in touch with you. Either way, will work.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thanks so much, guys. My name is Nik Ranger. This is SEO Meetup Melbourne. Click the subscribe, hit the notification bell, and if you really like this, give us a little thumbs up. I don't know why. I think that's just good for YouTube's algorithms, but my name is Nik Ranger. Nik Ranger at SEO on Twitter. Good night.
Bye.
Awesome.